Have you ever thought about how a single message can land in two totally different ways? How it can start a riot in one place, but get a thoughtful, curious reception just down the road? Well, we've got a story for you today about two ancient cities, Thessalonica and Berea. And believe me, their story tells us a whole lot about how we speak, and maybe more importantly, how we listen.
So, just picture this. An angry mob is shouting in the streets of the ancient Greek city of Thessalonica. And this is their accusation. These who have turned the world upside down have come here too. I mean, wow. What kind of idea is so radical, so disruptive, that it feels like it's flipping your entire world on its head?
The guy at the center of this whole storm was the Apostle Paul. He was this brilliant thinker traveling all over the Roman Empire with a message he believed could change everything. He's on his second big missionary trip, and when he gets to Thessalonica, well, he's not just going to make a few waves. Things are about to get really interesting.
So Paul and his partner, Silas, show up in Thessalonica after a pretty long 100-mile journey. And as he always did, he went straight to the local synagogue. And for 3 weeks straight, every Sabbath, he gets into this public dialogue with a really mixed crowd of Jews and non-Jews who were interested in what he had to say.
Okay, so this brings us to the big question, right? What in the world was Paul saying for 3 weeks that could get such a fiery, over-the-top reaction, and why was how he said it just as important as what he was saying?
So how exactly did he present this world-shaking idea? Well, Paul wasn't just up there giving a lecture. He had this very specific 3-step method that was designed for a two-way conversation. It was basically an open invitation to reason together.
Let's break this down. First, he reasoned from the scriptures. You know, the original Greek word here is where we get our word dialogue. So he was literally inviting them into a conversation. Second, he explained. This means he was opening up the text, making it super clear and simple. And finally, he demonstrated. He laid out the evidence step by step to logically persuade them that what he was saying was actually true.
And what was the whole point of all this reasoning and explaining and demonstrating? It was all laser-focused on one single revolutionary idea, that this man named Jesus, who had just recently been executed, was in fact the long-awaited Messiah, the Christ.
So his whole case really boiled down to just two massive claims. First, a claim about identity. This Jesus is the promised king. And second, a claim about his mission, that the ancient prophecies said this king had to suffer and then rise from the dead. Everything, and I mean everything, hinged on these 2 points.
Well, as you can imagine, this message had an absolutely explosive effect. It didn't bring the city together, nope. It split it right down the middle and led to a full-on uproar.
And the division was pretty much immediate and stark. On one side, a huge crowd of people were convinced, including a lot of prominent women and spiritual seekers. But on the other side, well, jealousy started to brew. A rival group gathered up, as the text says, some evil men from the marketplace and basically threw the entire city into chaos.
So this mob, they can't find Paul and Silas. So what do? They attack the house of the guy who was hosting them, a man named Jason. They drag him and some other believers out in front of the city officials and lay down two very specific, very serious charges against them.
But here is where it gets so fascinating. Their angry accusations were actually, in a way, unintended compliments. It's kind of funny, right? When they yelled, "They have turned the world upside down," they were admitting just how powerful and life-changing this message was. And when they said, they say there is another king, Jesus, they proved they understood the central claim perfectly, that Jesus' authority trumped all others.
With Thessalonica in total chaos, the local believers had to smuggle Paul and Silas out of the city in the middle of the night just to keep them safe. They journeyed about 40 miles to the next town over, a place called Berea, and you can just imagine them wondering, is it going to be the same thing all over again? And what they found in Berea? Wow. It was a world away from the angry mob in Thessalonica. Paul did his usual thing. He went to the synagogue, but the reception he got this time was completely different.
So the people of Berea are described as being more fair-minded. Now, this wasn't about them being wealthy or high class. It was about their character. It was this perfect mix of having an open heart, being willing to hear something new, but also having a clear head, to really examine it critically.
So what did this fair-minded attitude look like in practice? Well, first, they received the word with all readiness. That means they were genuinely eager to listen. But, and this is so important, they didn't just blindly accept it.
Second, they searched the scriptures daily to see if what Paul was saying was actually true. They were fact-checking him every single day. They saw the truth as something you could discover, not something you had to be afraid of.
And the result of this? It's night and day. While Thessalonica had that chaotic, mixed reaction, the response in Berea was just overwhelmingly positive. The record says that many of them believed, including prominent men and women from the city. Their fair-minded approach, that combination of an open heart and a clear head, it led to persuasion, not polarization.
So what's the big takeaway from all of this? This contrast between these two cities isn't just some ancient history lesson. It's really a timeless model for how all of us can engage with new and sometimes challenging information.
This table really lays it all out, doesn't it? The story in Thessalonica, that really shines a light on the speaker's job. You have to reason, you have to explain, you have to be clear. But the story in Berea, that highlights our job, the listener's responsibility, to receive new ideas with an open mind, but also to scrutinize them, to check the facts, and to come to your own informed conclusion.
You know, what this story really shows us is that truly effective communication is a partnership. It takes two. It needs a speaker who is committed to being clear, and it needs a listener who is committed to being curious and thinking critically. When both sides do their part, that's when you get understanding instead of an uproar.
So that leaves us with one final question to think about. When you hear a new, challenging idea, one that might just turn your world upside down, which city do you find yourself in? Are you in Thessalonica, ready to react with emotion? Or are you in Berea, ready to respond with an open heart and a clear head?